At the movie's beginning, we are introduced to a couple named Cameron and Janice. They are seen in the forest to bury the body of the person they have killed, with no explanation of their motives. The next morning, after burying the body, Janice is seen feeling very guilty. Cameron, who saw it, immediately tried to calm his wife by saying it was just an accident. They also hurried home. On the other hand, we will be introduced to a woman named Colleen. At that time, she was looking for a ride to her friend's birthday party in California. After waiting a long time, a car finally stopped and gave her a ride.
Westwood?
Sure, no problem.
Cameron and Janice drove the car. On the way, Colleen, who urgently needed to relieve herself, asked Cameron to stop at a gas station. While Colleen was in the gas station restroom, she accidentally saw Cameron take a box and put it on the car's back seat. When Colleen returned, she felt suspicious because she saw the box there, but she tried to dispel her suspicion. While on the road, Cameron invites Colleen to go to a nearby tourist spot. Hearing this, Colleen tried to refuse because she wanted to get to her friend's house before late at night. However, this is where Janice tries to calm her down by saying they will only go for a while to take pictures. Finally, Colleen could only obey them. When they got there, they stopped at a lonely and dense forest. Feeling surprised, Colleen asked about the location of the tourist spot they were going to. Then, Janice explained that a car could not pass the tourist spot, and they had to walk. As they walked, suddenly, from behind, Colleen was smothered by Cameron. After that, Colleen's hands were handcuffed, her eyes were blindfolded, and her mouth was gagged. However, that was not enough, so Cameron told Colleen to get into the car. Then, he put Colleen's head in a box he had prepared earlier. Upon arrival at their home, they immediately sent Colleen into an underground room. There, Colleen's hands were tied so that her body was hanging. Then, Colleen's clothes were stripped off, and Cameron cruelly tortured Colleen. As Colleen screamed in pain, Cameron immediately invited Janice to have sex. It is revealed that Cameron has a sex disorder where he is highly aroused when he hears the sound of a woman's pain. Once Cameron was satisfied, he took Colleen down and put her head back in the crate. That night, Colleen continued crying as if she couldn't believe what was happening to her. The next morning, as Cameron is about to go to work, he sees his wife, who is very agitated about having kidnapped Colleen. This is where Cameron tries to calm Janice down, ensuring everything will be okay. He explains that letting Colleen go could endanger them, as Colleen might report them to the police. After her husband left, Janice heard Colleen crying. She checked on Colleen and opened the crate covering her head. This is where Colleen begged Janice to let her go. Colleen also promised not to report her to the police. Seeing and hearing this, Janice became very sorry for Colleen. However, she tried to suppress her feelings for fear that Colleen would still report her to the police. After her husband came home from work in the afternoon, Cameron went to the basement to see Colleen. There, she gave Colleen a loaf of bread so she wouldn't starve. Later, when Janice and Cameron were in the room, Janice asked her husband to promise that he would not fuck Colleen. Hearing this, Cameron promised her that he committed the kidnapping to make Colleen a substitute for the object of violence that he had been doing to Janice. The next day, Cameron moved Colleen to a larger wooden crate.
When can I go home?
While in the box, Colleen could only cry while thrashing about. She also remembered her father, who had previously given her money to take a bus to California, but she refused the money and chose to hitch a ride on the road, where she ended up. At Colleen's house, her father tried to contact Colleen's friends as he had not heard from her for several days. Her father was shocked that Colleen never reached her friend's house. After that, her father tried to go to the police station to make a report, but the report was rejected because Colleen was an adult, and there was no evidence that she had experienced a crime. The police also thought Colleen was probably on vacation with her friends. 6 months later, Janice was seen meeting Cameron at his workplace. There, Janice shared the happy news that she was now pregnant. However, Cameron looks ordinary.
I don't know. I guess it could be.
Yeah, sure.
Then, Janice asked Cameron to release Colleen immediately because she was afraid that after her child was born, her child would be frightened when she saw Colleen's existence. However, Cameron seemed unwilling to release Colleen. He said that he would think of another solution to the problem. One day, Cameron found a magazine about a company that traded enslaved people. He came up with an idea and immediately asked his wife to make a contract for the sale of enslaved people on behalf of the company and the magazine. Later, Cameron met Colleen and showed her the magazine. He explains that he has now registered Colleen with the company as his slave. Cameron threatens that if Colleen tries to escape, the company will find and kill her and her family.
And there's nothing they won't do to catch a runaway slave.
Colleen, who was already very scared, just believed what Cameron said when it was Cameron's trick to keep Colleen from trying to escape. After that, Cameron gave a copy of the contract that Janice had previously made. He said that if Colleen did not sign the contract, he would torture Colleen more than he had done before. Colleen was seen reluctantly signing the contract and had tears in her eyes. Cameron put a shirt and dog collar around Colleen's neck the next day.
You need to wear this.
Here, Cameron changes Colleen's name to Key. He also tells Colleen to address herself and Janice as master and mistress. Cameron also tells Colleen that if he says attention, then Colleen must immediately go to the corner of the wall, take off her clothes, and stretch her arms. Just then, Cameron started to get aroused by Colleen, but suddenly, his wife saw it. Janice began to feel jealous and told Colleen to put her clothes back on. The next day, when Cameron came home from shopping, his neighbor reprimanded him for keeping his windows closed. Despite this, Cameron paid no attention to him and continued to walk into the house. A few months passed, and they had moved house by this time. One night, Janice went into labor without the help of a midwife, assisted only by her husband. After successfully delivering her baby safely, the baby girl was named Amber.
Okay? Meet Amber.
Long story short, Cameron invited Colleen to look for wood to sell. When Cameron cut the wood, his axe accidentally hit his leg. Colleen, who saw it, became confused about whether to help him or run away. However, having a high sense of humanity, Colleen decided to help Cameron. After that, Colleen immediately treated Cameron's wounds at home. Seeing that, Janice felt jealous of them. Later that night, they have a threesome, but Janice sees that her husband is more interested in Colleen, making her upset and leaving them. Cameron soon catches up with her, and a domestic argument ensues, in which Janice asks Cameron not to touch Colleen again. She also asked her husband to lock Colleen up for a long time. To cut a long story short, it had been 1,395 days since Colleen had been locked up. This was the first time Colleen had been taken out of her crate after the previous incident. While cleaning up, she accidentally saw Amber, who had now grown up, making her wonder how long she had been held captive. Days passed, and it had been 2,135 days since Colleen had been held captive. The next day, Janice took Colleen to church, where it was discovered that Janice was a devout believer. From here, Janice realized that she and her husband had done the wrong thing. One day, when Janice saw Colleen planting a plant, Janice immediately asked Colleen if she had ever had sex with her husband while she was working the night shift. Upon hearing the question, Colleen replied that she was only doing what her master told her to do. After years of living with them as an enslaved person, Cameron finally allowed Colleen to meet her family. However, she was required not to divulge what had happened. If she violated this, the threat to Colleen and her family's lives would be very serious. Hearing that, of course, Colleen felt very happy. She also agreed to all of Cameron's rules. In short, Colleen met with her family. Her parents looked very happy because they could finally meet again after all these years. Unfortunately, Cameron only gave Colleen a few days to stay with her parents. Nonetheless, they still had time to chat a lot and laugh together.
No, it's dangerous. Smile.
When asked by her sister about her whereabouts, Colleen only replied that she was busy working and did not have time to update them.
I've been busy.
Oh, come on, Colleen. I can't talk about this right now. Too busy to pick up a phone?
After a few days, Cameron came to pick Colleen up. He said he was Colleen's boyfriend and told them he would soon marry Colleen. Colleen's family was very surprised to hear that because Colleen had never told them about it before. Colleen's father asked Cameron to tell him when they had set a date for the wedding.
So where are you guys living now?
California?
Yeah. Well, have you picked a date yet?
Later that evening, Cameron told Colleen he would make her his second wife. Unfortunately, his wife, who had returned home earlier, heard this. Cameron was surprised to find out that his wife was already home. Janice seemed very disappointed in Cameron, so she couldn't say anything. The next day, Janice planned to go to her parents' house and report everything to the police.
Gonna go to the police?
Baby.
Sure.
Maybe I'll tell him everything.
Go ahead. If you do that, you can kiss Amber goodbye.
Upon seeing his wife leave, Cameron felt very frustrated. However, strangely enough, he decided to take all his anger out on Colleen.
You think you can just wear whatever you want now? Who do you think you are? What happened to showing some respect?
After that, he decided to lock Colleen in an underground room and leave her alone. Not long after discovering Cameron is not home, Janice comes to Colleen's aid. She then reveals that all the slavery contracts are void, and the company that claims to oversee them doesn't exist. Cameron did all of this as a trick to keep Colleen in custody. Janice then drives Colleen to the terminal and asks her to go home to her family. Without many words, Colleen immediately goes home. In short, Cameron is now back at home, crying in his room, whether out of remorse for his actions or fear of Janice threatening to report him to the police. In the end, shortly after, Cameron was arrested by the police and sentenced to 104 years in prison. Meanwhile, Janice was granted immunity for her bravery in exposing her husband's brutal behavior. It should be noted that Colleen was kidnapped for 7 years. With this case resolved, the movie came to an end. Make sure to subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you next time.